Good morning, students. In the second module of chapter number 3, an empire across the three continents, we will discuss the following 4 points in detail. The 4 points are: number 1 is economic expansion of the Roman Empire, number 2 late antiquity and religious and administrative changes during the period of this late antiquity, and number 3 is economic development made in Rome during antiquity and its result, and number 4 is role of slaves and hired labor in the Roman economy. And we will now discuss these things in detail one by one. First of all is regarding the role, was regarding the economic expansion of Roman Empire. Every nation, every ruler of it expand his geographical limits of the country. Either it is India, either it is China, either it is Pakistan, either it is Afghanistan, or any country in the world. His first intention is always to expand his geographical conditions, and it is assumed that when our economic conditions stability, a nation has to expand its geographical limits, because by conquering the other nations they will be able to earn more and more revenue. So our first concept is regarding economic expansion of the Roman Empire. Now, various economic activities prevailed in Rome. As a result, Rome saw a great economic expansion. Following are some of the characteristics of these expansions. We are dealing with economic now. Number 1, very good economic infrastructure of natural resources it have, like mines, harbors, brickyards, quarries, then olive oil factories. These were the main sources of revenue to Rome, as there are many types of taxes from these natural resources. Wine, wheat, and olive oil were consumed in high quantities and were traded as well. These things mainly came from the Gallic provinces, Spain, Egypt, North Africa, and most importantly Italy, where very good conditions were prevailing for the growth of these crops. Then finally, wine and olive oil were transported in containers, and these containers have special name called amphor, AMPHORAE, amphor. And second thing is, during the years 140 to 160 CE, trading of Spanish olive oil reached at its peak. The Spanish olive oil was mainly transported in a container which was known as Dressel 20. So we have to keep these two names very carefully. One is amphor and second is Dressel 20. Italian market of olive oil was captured by the Spanish producers. It happened only because Spanish producers supplied a better quality oil at lower prices, because the prices were less, because the demand was very much in Rome, so they were able to consume in high quantity in Rome, and Spain supplied in large quantity to them. Secondly, we can say that the big landowners of different regions used to compete with each other to take control of the markets for the goods which they produced. So these countries at that time have a competition among themselves, and because of these competitions they reduces their prices and increases their supply, and because of that the people consume more and more of these resources within the territory, and from the other countries they have earned a huge revenue. Thirdly, many regions were there in the empire with a reputation for exceptional fertile land and fertility rate. Most densely Campania and Sicily in Italy, the Fayum and Gili in Egypt, Byzantium, southern Gaula called Gallia, and Baetica, southern Spain. These were fertile lands and they are producing good quality of natural resources. Number 4. Campania was the main producer of best kinds of wine. Large quantities of wheat were exported to Rome by Sicily and Byzantium. Then number 5. Large expenses of Roman territories were in a much less advanced state. Means they are earning huge taxes and huge income from these territories. For example, Transmance was widespread in the countryside of Numidia, northern Algeria. These pastoral and semi-nomadic countries were generally on the move. They carried their oven-shaped huts called mapilia with them. As Roman states expanded in North Africa, the pastures of those communities were drastically reduced and their movements more tightly regulated. Number 6. Even in Spain, the north was much less developed and inhabited largely by a Celtic-speaking peasantry that lived in hilltop villages called Castilla. The fact is that the Rome was economically a very advanced, developed, rich country. A very large number of gold coins were prevalent in that country. So this was the economic expansion of the empire from 509 BC to 27 CE. What was the next part is, what do you mean by late antiquity and religious and administrative changes made during this period? Now, first of all, we should know about the meaning of late antiquity. What is late antiquity? The term late antiquity is used to describe the final fascinating period, means the glorious period in the evolution and breakup of the Roman Empire, and refers broadly to 4th to 7th centuries. This period was full of many cultural and economic fermentations. Following religious and administrative changes were made in the Roman Empire during this period. A is religious changes. In the 4th century, Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official religion. Now Christianity began to flourish in the state. Secondly, in the 7th century, Islam rose. This religion also began to become more popular rapidly. B is administrative changes. The general administrative changes set up by the state also saw several significant improvements. These changes occurred in the time of Diocletian and continued till the time of Constantine and after him. These changes were the following. Number 1, changes made during the time of Diocletian. The empire had expanded to a great extent. Many of the territories had no strategic or economic value. Therefore, Diocletian cut back by abandoning territories with little strategic or economic values. Means the unimportant, the those states or those areas which do not give any productive results were cut off from the other part of the room. Number two, he forfeited frontiers of the empire. He had strong hold of the geographical limits of his country. He has fortified, means he has captured, he has controlled over all the boundaries of his country. He reorganized provincial boundaries. He separated civilians from military functions. He make a segregation of the functions of army and the civil officers and granted greater autonomy to the military commanders. It made military officials more powerful. So he has made a military dominated country Rome. Then the changes made in the time of Constantine. Constantine created Constantinople and made it the second capital. It was surrounded on three sides by the sea. Number two, as the new capital required a new senate, there was a rapid expansion of the governing classes in the 4th century. So these were the religious and administrative reforms done by Diocletian and Constantine in late antiquity period. Then we come to the third part, economic development made in Rome during antiquity and its result. Now see here, in this period, extraordinary economic development was made in Rome in the following fields. Number one, a new denomination called the solidus was introduced by the Emperor Constantine. It was a pure gold coin weighing 4.5 gram. This gold coin was minted in a very large scale and millions of these coins were in circulation. Then number two, economic growth was stimulated by the monetary stability. This is the most important aspect. That whenever there is a monetary stability in any country or in any region, the growth will automatically be there. And an expanding population. Lots of investments were made in industrial establishments and rural industries. These include glass factories, oil presses, and oil water mill and multiple water mills. Lots of investments were also made. Lots of investments were also made in the long distance trade. That is why the trade was revived. So economic development made in Rome during antiquity was very much in positive side, and the result was that the urban richness improved in Rome. It was marked by new types of architecture and great sense of luxury. The ruling nobles became more powerful and wealthier than before. So we have studied the religious, administrative and economic development during late antiquity and its result in Rome. Then we come to the last section, that is very important, number 4, role of slaves and hired labor in the Roman economy. Now this was the fourth category of people in Rome. Slavery was deeply rooted both in the Mediterranean and in the West Asia. There were 3 million slaves under the reign of Augustus out of total population of 7.5 million means 1/3 of the population was slave. Even after when Christianity became the state religion in the 4th century, the institution of slavery remained intact. Slaves were considered as an investment at that time. Role of hired labor and slaves. In the 1st century, peace was established and warfare became less widespread. It declines the supply of slaves, so the users of slave labor thus had to find other ways also. One of the method was slave breeding and other was cheaper substitute, and that was wage labor, which was most easily available. Actually, free labor was widely used in Rome on public works because use of slave labor was very expensive. Slaves had to be fed and maintained throughout the year, but not to the hired labor. It increased the cost of holding this type of labor. That is why in the later period slaves were not widely used in agriculture. Now these freedmen and slaves were widely used as business managers. They were given capital by their managers and masters to run business on their behalf in the open markets. With this passage of time, number of hired labor increased. The eastern frontier city of Dara was built in less than 3 weeks by the late 5th century Emperor Anastasius. He attracted labor on high wages from all over the east. By the 6th century, wage labor had become widespread in many parts of Mediterranean Sea. So in this way, the economy of the Rome developed. Today we have studied the economic, religious and administrative aspects of Roman Empire, and we should also study the role of slaves and hired labor in the development of Roman economy. Emperors' role, how these laborers helped to improve the economy of the Roman Empire. Thank you. Today, I hope you will learn these 4 aspects of Roman Empire from economic point of view very well. In the 3rd module, we will discuss the other points also. I hope you like it very much and like my video. Thank you very much once again.